Right, I think I'll slowly begin. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It's day 2 of the Wikidata and Sister Projects event. If you're joining us for the first time today, my name is Danny Benjafield. I'm a Community Communications Manager with Wikimedia Deutschland, attached to a software development team called Wikidata for Wikimedia Projects. If you'd like to know more about me or the team, what we're working on, or what projects we've been attached to, you can reach out to me directly later on, and yeah, you can ask any questions. So the schedule for today, we have 4 sessions planned. We're going to start with an overview of best practices for reusing Wikidata Starter in the Wikimedia projects. That'll be given by Mike Peel. Following this, there'll be a live demonstration of a Wikidata-fueled infobox and how they can support indigenous language content for smaller language Wikipedias. And that will be given by Dian Shatobu and Shahadu Sadiq. Next up, Ohana United is going to show us how to connect Wikivoyage and Wikidata. And finally, we'll round out the day with a Wikidata clinic with Lydia. So please bring your Wikidata related topics and questions, and let's have a collaborative discussion. But before we move on to the first session, I just wanted to have a quick reminder that we have a survey. We mentioned yesterday there will be a survey of this event where we're going to ask for your input, your opinions, feelings, critiques, and compliments. This will help us improve for future events, and it's going to be open until June the 15th. So there's plenty of time, but if you could spare 5 to 10 minutes to answer it, we would be really grateful. So without further ado, shortly going to hand it over to Mike if you're ready. And yeah, I'd love to hand over control and hear all about best practices for reusing Wikidata.
Great, thanks. Hopefully you can see my screen. And hear me?
Yes, I see your screen and I hear you. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to give a bit of an overview of how to reuse Wikidata in Wikimedia projects. I've got kind of 3 parts to this. The first is how to actually transclude it. What's the actual techniques? Then I'm going to go through some examples of current uses that I've been involved in or seen being used. And finally, I want to cover some of the tricky parts. The spoiler is the problem is generally not technical, it's social. So trying to figure out that aspect is the interesting part here. So first with how to actually do the transclusion. So you have your standard setup with Wikitext. You need to get Wikidata content into that, and you have to use Lua to do that. So you can access using the hash statements tag, or directly access it in Lua code. So there's a whole Lua Scribe1 interface available. Those offer various different functions. You can get the data out. Often you want to do more than that because you want to reformat it so that it's displaying in the right way. You want to pull multiple values, qualifiers, and things like that. So one of the things we've got on English Wikipedia and Commons and elsewhere is module Wikidata-IB. The IB standing for infoboxes, which is what this was originally developed for. And this is a really complicated module, but has a lot of useful functionality in it that you can use to build Wikidata features on top of. So you can get values, you can get the qualifier values, values by qualifier and language. You can get properties of properties, various different things, get coordinates, get images. This module enables that. So it's a bit of a pain to install, but once you got it up and running, it's really powerful for doing things. And this is what everything I've been doing has been kind of based on. So some of the examples of current uses. I think the most successful has been the Wikidata Infobox on Commons. So this is a project started in about 2018, and it's gone out now to 5.4 million Commons categories, which I think is the biggest deployment of Infoboxes ever across all Wikimedia projects, particularly if you multiply by number of language. There's more Infoboxes on Commons now than there is on English Wikipedia for sure, possibly French Wikipedia as well. So the idea with this is just a very small info box to add context for what's in the Commons category without hiding the contents of that category. Because there's a few categories on Commons where you go to it and the first screen is basically, this is all the metadata information about it. And you have to even scroll down to get to images. It's even worse when you're on a mobile device or similar. So the idea was this sits at the top right or top left if you're the other way around, and just gives you that context of what the category is about, using Wikidata information entirely. So there's no local definitions used on Commons for this. It's just Wikidata Infobox in curly brackets, and that's it. And the real advantage of this is because Wikidata is multilingual, the Infobox is multilingual. So everything, when you change your language on Commons, everything in here translates. So there's always been this long-standing problem on Commons of the Commons category name is in English, or there's various other languages used as well, but predominantly English. And if you can't understand that, you won't be able to understand the category contents. But with Wikidata, you can get the information in your language and be able to understand what's going on in that category. And also get a whole load of extra features, so website links and things like that. At the bottom, there's also all of the links to other things you can use. So WikiShootMe, for example, appears when you've got coordinates, you've got maps, you've got PetScan, everything hopefully you need will be at the bottom there as well. So it's useful for editors, useful for readers, that's the idea. It also shows you what Wikidata knows about the subject with images. So if there's, this is for this event, I created this item yesterday, there's not much in it. It's got a logo, there's no picture of it, but you can see instantly what's there and what's not there based on what's kind of in the rest of the category. So if you've got night images or maps or images of entrances or everything you might expect on Wikidata, you see on Commons whether it's there or not, and hopefully encourages people to go and add it. And this is something which is in continuous development. It's not static. It's kind of had probably an update every 3 months since 2018. And it's always community coming and saying, could we add this? Could we tweak this? And there's lots of suggestions we can come in there. So it's really a collaborative effort. So Commons worked really well. Oh, and I've got some examples. This is in different languages, different things. South Pole Telescope, I'm an astronomer, so everything has to have telescopes in it. This is where actually, because it's at the South Pole, it breaks the map. It displays a whole load of other information. Ukrainian, this is a radio telescope in Ukraine. So it's all appearing in Ukrainian, apart from, I think, some bits which aren't translated. Listeria in German. Groundbird is a Japanese telescope in Spain, and this is showing it in Japanese as well. Works with extensions as well. And also, if you don't have a Wikidata item linked to it, it says, can't find it. So this displays instead, search for it, create a new item, and try to encourage people to do more linking. So Commons has worked really well. Wikipedias are more difficult. So there's a lot more history of info boxes on Wikipedia. There's many different info boxes covering all different topics. The one on Commons just covers everything. It's really generic. But people on Wikipedias tend to want individual ones. And in particular, there's a lot of differences in consensus between Wikipedias. Catalan Wikipedia loves it. It's everywhere. English Wikipedia generally doesn't like it. As if Infobox Telescope, for example, it's live. There's a few others, but it's tricky there. And others also have mixed stories. There can be particular requirements of Wikipedias. So in particular, English Wikipedia wants reference Wikidata information only, which is not where you put in this was stated in this Wikipedia article. It has to actually be reference URL or something like that going to an external site. And then it'll appear. If you don't have a reference, it won't appear in the info box. So please do add references. It is really powerful though, because for example, whenever you edit Wikidata, it updates across all the different languages. So an example is if you add a picture on Wikidata, you immediately get kind of 10 different language Wikipedias starting to pick that up. Portuguese, Spanish, all the others. So it's really powerful for being able to add content that way. And also, yeah, generally improves cross Wikimedia integration. You can put in things like, this is a link to Commons, this is a link to Wikisource. You can generally link everything better when you use Wikidata info boxes. if you can get past the social aspects, which I'll come back to later. Another really powerful thing that I've seen in action, and this has been developed by Magnus Mansk for many years, is Wikidata-powered lists, which can be used on Wikipedias. Normally now these are used for work lists. So Women in Red, for example, has a lot of red lists using Listeria. It's a way you can very quickly create list articles with Wikidata information based on Wikidata queries. Anything you can fetch with a Wikidata query, you can easily turn into a list. And then when you update Wikidata, new items get added and things, the bot comes back and updates the list. So it's really powerful for expanding it out. And it works across all different languages using the same data set, which is really important. Portuguese Wikipedia is probably the best examples I've seen of this live. So this is an example here. There's another one, which is the list of vanished and disappeared people during the Brazilian military dictatorship, that I think is a featured list on Portuguese Wikipedia. It's also now one of the longest lists on English Wikipedia, because I copied it over and set it up. But then the English Wikipedia community said, well, we don't like all these bare references at the bottom of it, because there's literally about 1,200 references at the bottom. So they disabled Listeria, and they've been slowly converting all the references into classical English Wikipedia style. And that means it's one of the biggest articles now on English Wikipedia. But it doesn't get the list from Wikidata anymore. And when people in Brazil are finding extra people to add or correcting information, you don't get that translated over onto English Wikipedia, which is a shame, because English Wikipedia is not the specialists in that, Brazilians are. So it's really losing out there. And that's an example of where you get some tensions between different projects, I guess, with making use of Wikidata optimally. Yeah, so just to point out, Wikidata queries, it's a really powerful way of getting information out of Wikidata. I normally go to request a query because it's quite complicated, and just use these to put into the Wikidata list or Listeria commands. Another thing we've been working on, particularly with Andy Mabbott, is site queue, so automatically generating references in Wikipedia articles from Wikidata. This is because WikiSites created millions of Wikidata items for journal articles in particular, which is really useful for scientific articles on English Wikipedia and elsewhere. So we can, rather than creating a copy of that information, putting it onto Wikipedia, we can just say site queue, this QID, and all of this information will be fetched over from Wikidata. Gives you all of the lists to the places you can find it, even has open access, gives you the Wikidata item, links the author names where they have articles as well and things. So it's really powerful to get citation information into Wikipedias. This will work in any language again, because it's Wikidata, which is fantastic. Yeah, it'll automatically link to everything. It also will update automatically. So if a paper changes from preprint to a publication, or if it's withdrawn or replaced, that information gets shown in the Wikipedia article, and you can update it based on that. So it's really powerful, just needs to be used more. I think there's about 40,000 users of this on English Wikipedia at the moment. Now to get rolled out more. I said there's tricky parts. Technical side is not the tricky part, which is the interesting thing. So it's mostly solved, I think. You've got these different things working live already. It's complicated. You have to understand Lua. You have to understand to get the wiki text right. But built-in Lua functions get you part of the way. Wikidata-IB will get you most of the rest of the way. Then you do have the tricky part of getting the formatting exactly right. So I think English Wikipedia in particular is well known for being very picky with formatting. You have to get the dates in the right format depending on the article. You have to wiki link it for the first time, not later times. There's lots of complicated things there. So that's often what takes the most time, just tweaking it. There's a bit of recent really good news, which is if exists call is finally fixed. So that's been a bug which has been waiting for the last 10 years or so. It's if you want to check if an article exists, you can use if exist, and it'll come back and say yes or no, and you can use that to decide if you want to link to that item or not in an info box, which is really useful for people's jobs, for example. So if you've got I don't know, different, I've forgotten the examples for this now. A kind of a job title, and you've got profession on article, then you can check and see if the job title exists. If it doesn't, you can link to the profession. But the problem always was, if you do that check, it shows up in what links here, even if it's not actually linking there. And that upset a lot of people on English Wikipedia, meant we couldn't use that. That's now fixed, so the what links here doesn't show it if it's just an if exists check, which will be really useful in the future. There's also things like Listeria is nice, but it's definitely a hack because you have to have a bot updating it every time. It would be really nice if there was a way to just include queries directly in articles and set all the formatting and everything once and have it automatically update every time it needs to. But I don't know if that's on the roadmap or anything, but that's kind of a longer term wish. The other thing is, it kind of links in a bit with the social side of it. People really like editing on the wiki they're on and not going to a different one to edit there. So something like Wikidata Bridge, which lets you edit in place on a Wikipedia rather than having to go to Wikidata, would keep a lot of people happier. They'll never be completely happy, but it would make them a bit happier. The social part, I think, is really the tricky part and the key thing to get right. If you have to make sure that the community you're working with has to want and support Wikidata integration. If you don't have that, it's going to be an uphill struggle. You'll run into a lot of problems. Your edits will get reverted. You'll be told, no, don't do that here. And that has happened particularly on English Wikipedia. We did some deployments of Wikidata-powered infoboxes in specific areas, and they just got rolled back. They didn't want them. So, and that was literally about 1,000 edits or so, which were reverted. There's not made on this wiki is a really big thing. So if you can't edit on the Wikipedia, people will object and they won't want to go off wiki. There is the interesting exception of Commons, that people generally seem to be happy with using Commons, even though you have to go to a Commons wiki to interact with it. That's not necessarily the same with text. So that's a really tricky area. You either have to make sure that they're happy to go over, or ideally some way of editing it in that Wikipedia. It's also, you can't come in, do something and leave. You have to keep on working with the community all the time, because they will say, well, that isn't in the right place. We want this added. We want, don't want that bit. They will keep continually asked to iterate, particularly with complex templates like infoboxes. And you have to keep them happy with that. You have to keep iterating. It'll improve the infobox, it'll improve the content, but it's an ongoing process. And Commons Infobox, we've been doing deployments of it regularly for 6 years now, 7 years maybe. That's not going to change in the near future, because that's what it's needed on Commons. There's also, what works on one wiki might not work on another wiki, particularly with the bigger wikis, which can be really difficult to work with in some cases, just because they've got such a history of, they've always done things a different way, and they've got a lot of people who can do that. That's a very different situation from some of the smaller wikis, where it's possibly a lot easier to just add a lot of content quickly using infoboxes. It's a balance. What works on Commons as well is different from what works on English Wikipedia and things. Although I'm kind of hoping that having the Commons infobox will make all the Wikipedias envious, because they'll see, look at these fantastic infoboxes in Commons. Why haven't we got something similar in our Wikipedia? But that's the long-term aim. So you have to understand the community. You have to be embedded and work with the community to really get success there. You can't easily be just force from above, I guess. And that's basically all I've got in terms of kind of, giving advice. I would really appreciate your input and thoughts on this, and maybe hearing about some of your challenges you've seen on your wikis. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much, Mike. That was really interesting. Yeah, I actually I had a question. I was wondering, regarding the Wikidata Infobox, what do you think the roadmap looks like? Do you think like an approach of more standardization or more local flexibility would lead to it being more popular or increased adoption?
I think it's a case of working with the community and trying to find out what they want, fundamentally. It would almost be nice if it was something built into MediaWiki. So you can just say, we want the info box from Wikidata, and it'll just show it using MediaWiki directly or something like that. There are issues with speed of access. It can slow down articles quite a bit in some cases if it's really complicated. And having it kind of embedded in MediaWiki or something would be a lot quicker. I think it just comes down to social. You need to make the community want to have it. And then they will kind of, if you then make it easy for them to get it, because I know Wikidata-IB and the Commons Infobox is not easy to deploy on other wikis. If you make that process easier so they can just say, yes, we want that, we'll run with it, that helps. But it's a long slog.
Yeah, I've read through a couple of the RFCs about it, and noticing that there are some comments about concerns about verifiability of data, or that some data is incorrect and yet hasn't been changed in quite some time. Is there currently any way to quickly flag suspicious or factually incorrect data?
I don't think there is, in terms of, you can mention it to the community on the village pump or something like that, or you can just edit it directly as a normal approach. I think that is a problem on both sides, though, not just on Wikidata side. So one thing I do is trying to synchronize between short descriptions on English Wikipedia and the descriptions on Wikidata, because English Wikipedia is either they want all the short descriptions there. So when they add a new short description, like I bulk copies over onto Wikidata and try to keep them in sync, I get a lot of reverts with that because people have vandalized Wikipedia, and my bots copy that vandalism over into Wikidata, which is not great. So it kind of goes both ways. It's always a process to make sure your information is accurate and well referenced, and Wikidata enables you to do that in one place rather than having to do it across all the different wikis. So if you spot something that is wrong on Wikidata, you can fix it. It'll update on Commons. It'll update on all the different Wikipedias. Whereas if you just spotted it on one Wikipedia and fixed it there, it wouldn't propagate. So having it centralized really helps for being able to fight that to get generally better quality data over time. And it also helps with, I think it was yesterday, we were seeing the Wikidata edits appearing in Wikipedia watch lists and recent changes, and making that better will help because that gives you more eyes on it, basically. So it's always a case of the more visible information is, the more likely it's going to be accurate, because people are just correcting it as it goes.
Great, thank you. From the chat, I see that Nicholas has asked if you have any thoughts about wiki functions and how that could change the integration.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out exactly how that fits in, because we have some feedback and noise. Okay, better now. We have the Commons Infobox 5.4 million categories. If we could figure out ways of using wiki functions in that, so we can just deploy it quite quickly, and that would be very powerful. But exactly how you do that, I'm not sure yet. Particularly how you do it in a multilingual way that will work across everything. And particularly because there's a limitation of wiki functions, it won't output wiki text, which is kind of what you need. So looking forward to seeing what's possible there, basically. But there's a lot of potential for making use of it in the future if it does turn out to be useful
there. I think we had a question from Bodhisattva. No? If not, Mahir in the chat also asks if there's any plan for SiteQ to support something similar for formatting the content of references on Wikidata statements.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. There's not a plan to do that. So typically on Wikidata, there's not much information in a reference. It's really normally just about a URL. You can fill in the titles, the date it was retrieved and things like that, but people don't often do that. So there's a big issue with the data set in the first place. But in principle, yeah, you can use Wikidata-IB to fetch that information and display it in the ways you want, feed it into a citation template. So technically possible if the content is good enough to support it. I think there's also references tend to be more transient, I think, as well, than having a separate item for within WikiCite for a specific reference. I know there's ideas that have been floating around about having a kind of general database of references across all Wikipedias, which might be an interesting way to do things like that. So yeah, possible, not sure the data's there yet.
Thank you. And I see in the chat that Andrew Russell Green has asked if this time, in view of how editors work with Wikidata, it seems that there are two competing ways of thinking about wiki text. First, as a way of representing static documents, and second, as a programming language. Wikidata usage seems to require to use the second way of thinking, even though for readers and many editors, it's mainly about static documents. And Andrew was wondering if you have any thoughts about this.
Yeah, I mean, I think Wikitext no longer is used as a programming language, which is good, because I've worked on Wikitext-based templates, and they get into a mess very quickly. So having Lua now really helps with that. I think, I mean, in general, it would be nice if we had more interactive content on Wikipedia and more dynamic content. So having it just as static documents is kind of isn't so good, and maybe there's opportunities in the long term for that. The whole kind of Wikipedia interface is kind of a bit 1990s almost, with just displaying static content. But yeah, things like having Histopedia embedded into Wikipedias might be really interesting, and that kind of interactive content where you can explore the Wikidata information. But I think we're quite a way off being able to do that technically at the moment. In terms of mindsets, I think it's just going to be, yeah, ongoing work with the community, try to get people to think a bit differently, and try to figure out kind of how to be more engaging with readers in that area. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So we have a couple of minutes before the next planned session. If anyone has any last-minute questions, then I would suggest if Dian Shutobu and Shahadu Sadiq, if you're in the room and you'd like to decide who's going to share their screen and get the next session set up.
Yes, thanks for the questions.
Yep, thank you so much, Mike. Thank you very much.